Imagine you have volunteered for a clinical trial for a new medication, and the researcher tells you it's a double-blind clinical trial. At first, that term may sound a little confusing or even a little intimidating. In this video, I'll break down exactly what a double-blind clinical trial is, why it is used, and what it means for you as a participant. My goal here is to explain the fundamentals and the methodology of a double-blind clinical trial in plain everyday language so that you can feel more informed and confident about what to expect. Double-blind clinical trials are widely considered as the gold standard in clinical trials. They are designed to test new treatments like drugs or vaccines in the most fair and unbiased way possible. If you're considering taking part in a clinical trial, understanding the double-blind design will help you appreciate how the study is set up to produce reliable results while keeping things objective and safe as possible for everyone involved. So, in simple terms, a double-blind clinical trial is a study in which neither the participants nor the researchers know who is receiving which treatment during the clinical trial. This is different from a single blind clinical trial where the participants are the only group that are unaware. It's also different from an open-label clinical trial where everyone knows what treatment is being given. In a double-blind setup, both you and the medical staff are kept in the dark about whether you're getting the experimental treatment or a comparison such as a placebo or the standard treatment that is available. This blinding is maintained until the study is over and all the data has been collected. So why go through this extent? Well, the purpose is to prevent bias and the power of expectation from influencing the result. When neither you nor your doctors know which treatment you're getting, it ensures that any differences observed between the treatment group and the control group are due to the treatment itself and not because of someone's expectations which influence the outcome. Now, double blind does not mean anyone is physically blinded or blindfolded. It's just a figure of speech in science. It simply means information is withheld. In fact, some people often use the term mass study instead of blind. And the goal is to make sure that nobody's knowledge or lack of knowledge can skew the results. So how does a double-blind trial work? Let me walk you through the basic process and methodology. Participants in the trial are randomly assigned to one of the study groups, for example, the treatment group receiving the new drug or the control group receiving a placebo or the standard treatment. This randomization is usually done by a computer program. So neither you nor your researchers can choose which group you end up in, and this randomness helps ensure that the groups are comparable and the results will be scientifically valid. In a double-blind trial, each participant often gets a code or an ID number instead of a treatment name or instead of using their real names. The actual treatment or the real drug or even the placebo is labeled in such a way that it doesn't reveal their identity. And sometimes both the real names of the treatment and the placebo are made to look identical, often appearing in the same packaging so no one can tell them apart. Only an independent third party holds the code that links those numbers to what each person received. For example, you may be patient number 47 in a trial, and only a pharmacy computer knows whether patient number 47's bottle contains the new drug or the placebo. You won't know, and neither will the study's doctors or nurses. And it's not just limited to the participants or the doctors and the nurses whom you interact with, but even the researchers that are running the study will not know who is getting what. And so the drug will simply be referred to as the study medication, or it may use code names. Irrespective of whether you receive the real drug or the placebo or fake drug, you will be monitored in the same way, no matter what you have been given. Even if one group is receiving just a sugar pill, the study staff will check on this participant's health and progress just as attentively as they will do for those who are taking the real drug. From your perspective as a participant, procedures like blood tests or checkups or questionnaires about how you feel will be identical regardless of your group. This is important because it keeps the study conditions consistent and ensures that any differences in the outcomes aren't because one group got more attention or different type of care. The double blind is maintained until the end of the trial. only after the study is completed. At that point after the trial, they can analyze the data to see if the treatment made a real difference. In double-blind clinical trials, the real treatment and the placebo are made to look identical. For example, for a new drug pill, the placebo will be made in the same shape, size, and color, but may be made of sugar. In some cases, there may be the need to do an emergency unblinding. And this usually happens if something serious happens during the trial. Then your doctors will need to find out what you were taking. If there is a medical emergency where knowing what treatment you received is critical, for example, if there is a severe reaction, then the researchers can quickly find out whether you were put on the drug or on the placebo, because participant safety is the most important thing during these studies. However, unless such a situation arises, the blind remains intact throughout the study to preserve the integrity of the data. So you may be wondering, why are double-blind clinical trials used? Well, they're used because they offer some very huge advantages in getting trustworthy scientific results. The main benefits here are that they eliminate participant bias. Humans are very suggestible. If we believe we're getting a helpful treatment, we may feel or report an improvement even if the treatment was inactive. This is known as the placebo effect. Likewise, if we suspect that we got a placebo, we may feel disappointed and report fewer improvements. So in a double-blind trial, since you don't know what you're getting, your expectations are less likely to influence the outcome. You're on equal footing with every other participant, and you report how you feel without the mental influence of, I think I got the real drug, so I should feel better, or I probably got the placebo, so nothing will change. This makes the information collected from you a lot more reliable. We also conduct double-blind studies because it eliminates researcher or observer bias. Researchers and doctors are human too. If a doctor knew you were on a new drug, they might even unintentionally treat you differently or interpret your results more optimistically. Conversely, if they knew you were on placebo, they may not expect the improvement and could overlook subtle changes. So double blinding takes this out of the equation. And finally, we run double blinded studies because it just gives the results a lot more scientific credibility, because all of these biases from both the participants and the healthcare staff are controlled. So whatever data is produced from these types of studies is considered more robust and credible. The medical community and regulators have greater confidence in these results. There's also a fairness aspect to running double-blinded studies. In a single-blind clinical trials, participants know that the researchers have information that they don't, and some may worry that the investigators may treat different groups differently. When it is double-blinded, everybody is equal under the same conditions, which can make the experience feel more fair to participants irrespective of who they are. So if you're ever considering joining a clinical trial and you get told that it's a double-blind clinical trial, here's what the experience will mean from your perspective. First, you need to know that everything will be explained to you before you agree to take part in the clinical trial. The trial team will tell you if the study is randomized and if it is double-blind and what that entails, which means that you'll know that you may get the experimental treatment or you may get the real treatment, which means that you will know ahead of time that you may get the experimental treatment or you may get the placebo. Throughout the study as well, you will not be told which group you're in, and you shouldn't ask the researchers because they wouldn't know either, even if someone on the team did know. And even because they wouldn't know either, and even if someone on the team did know, they're not allowed to tell you. It's normal to feel curious and anxious about what it is that you're receiving, but keep in mind that not knowing is a crucial part of the trial's integrity. And it's most important for you to know that you will get the same level of medical attention and care regardless of which group you're in. The doctors will monitor your health, check in with you regularly, and respond to any issues you have just as carefully whether or not you're on the real drug. In fact, because they don't know, they have to treat every ache or pain that you report very seriously. So if you develop any problems, they will address it with full caution, since it could be related to the treatment or since it could be something else. They will not dismiss anything as, "Well, it's just a placebo." And if at all an emergency happens, as mentioned earlier, if there's a critical need to know what you're taking for your safety, then the research team can break the blind for you. This is a rare event, but it's an important safety net. You will not be left in danger for any reason whatsoever. And once the study is completed, then you'll find out if you were in the treatment group or in the placebo group. This can sometimes happen weeks or months after your last visit. Double-blinded clinical trials are a powerful study design in which neither you nor the researchers know who is getting the real drug. And this design is all about keeping the trial fair, unbiased, and scientifically reliable. So if you're considering taking part in a double-blind clinical trial, you can take comfort in knowing that this methodology is meant to protect the integrity of the research and ultimately to protect the participants, and also just help ensure that any new medications and therapies are tested rigorously before being made available to the rest of the world. As a participant, you should never hesitate to ask questions. Understanding the terms like double-blind can empower you make more informed decisions. And remember that in a double-blind clinical trial, you will be treated the same and get the same care and attention no matter what. I hope this explanation makes the concept of a double-blind clinical trial clear. It's a very fascinating and crucial part of how modern medicine advances. If you do decide to take part in a clinical trial, thank you for your contribution to science, and like and subscribe to get more information on how clinical trials work and how they help move science forward.